Good evening. Terrible news coming in from this afternoon in Coonoor in Tamil Nadu, where a chopper, a Mi-17 V5 carrying the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, his wife Madhulika Rawat and 12 others has crashed. We now have confirmation that 13 out of the 14 people have died, I'm afraid. One male survivor. These are the pictures that we've been getting all this afternoon. Terrible, shocking and absolutely grim news that's been coming to us. Locals coming to the rescue there. You had teams that were out on the ground. 13 bodies have been recovered so far. The fate of General Rawat is unknown. He was the first ever Chief of Defence Staff for the Tri-Services appointed by the Government of India. We'll have all the updates through the course of the next 1 hour. Within the next 30 minutes, the Cabinet Committee on Security will be meeting, chaired by the Prime Minister. But first, the details of what we know so far. All right, we're starting off with some breaking news here on Viewpoint. Now we have confirmation that there is one sole survivor in this chopper crash. A male survivor is what we're being told. We do not know the identity of this male survivor. All that we know is one person, a male survivor, has managed to survive this horrific crash. Let me try and see if we can go across to Shreya Dondiala, defense editor, who's been tracking this story. So out of the 14 people, one person has survived. Shreya, is there any information about the identity of this sole survivor?
Not yet. The confirmation that the Nilgiri collector is giving is that out of the 14 people on board that Mi-17, there is one survivor. But Zaka, the initial reports that had come to us were that the 3 people who had been pulled out alive, they had sustained burn injuries to an extent where they weren't recognizable. The burn injuries were about 85 to 90%. So right now, the DNA testing is currently underway. Do we know the identity of the person who has survived this crash? The pictures that come to us tell us that this will be a complete miracle. But the indications, as far as General Bipin Rawat is concerned, are not looking good. Sources have confirmed to us here in South Block that one charred body of a woman, a female, has been pulled out. The sole female traveling on board that Mi-17 was Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, who is General Bipin Rawat's wife. So we have a certain degree of clarity there. Has General Bipin Rawat managed to survive? Just look at all the indications that have come in. As we speak, in fact, in another 20-25 minutes or so, the CCS will start. It is being chaired by the Prime Minister of the country. The Raksha Mantri of the country, the Army Chief, both have visited General Bipin Rawat's residence. Pushkar Singh Dhami, the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, is making his way to Pauri Garhwal, to General Bipin Rawat's ancestral village. All the signs that are coming in are not looking good. This is a tragedy of mammoth proportions. The question is, when will an official declaration come out? When will the government make an official announcement of what exactly has happened? Sources within South Block here, within the Raksha Mantri's office, are telling me that that will happen only tomorrow because DNA testing and identification is currently underway. So when the Raksha Mantri comes and makes a statement on the floor of the House, it's 100% accurate. So that is why the wait, because I do understand a lot of opposition parties are asking why keep the country waiting. There is a reason, there's a protocol that needs to be followed. But the CCS that will be chaired by the Prime Minister happening at 6:30, the indications not looking good. 13 out of 14 people on board dead. A huge shock, not just to the entire security establishment here in New Delhi, but the entire country really.
Oh, absolutely. The entire country has been in absolute shock over the last 4 to 5 hours since we got this grim news. Let's try and put together the sequence of events to try and get you a better understanding. Remember, this chopper took off from the Sulur Air Base. This is just on the outskirts of Coimbatore. This was a little around 11:30 or so in the afternoon, the Air Force Base there in Sulur. It was headed towards the Staff Defence College in Wellington. Remember, in Wellington, the Chief of Defence Staff was due for a lecture at about 2:45. At a little past noon, that's where the last contact was established with this particular chopper. It's a Mi-17 V5, which is one of the brand new additions to the Indian Air Force from the Russian fleet, as it were, bought from the Russians. What we do know is that about 12:20 is when last contact was established. What eyewitnesses have said was this chopper descended in altitude pretty dramatically. It hit a jackfruit tree that was there. Remember, Coonoor is filled with tea gardens. It's bang in the middle of the Nilgiris. And it hit a jackfruit tree and then went up in a shroud of flames and smoke and then crash landed into a huge ground. That's what eyewitnesses on the ground have said. We're awaiting formal confirmation from the Indian Air Force, which we're expecting in the next few minutes. Let me go across to Arunima as well, who's tracking the story for us. Arunima, what further information are we picking up from the Defence Minister's office, from the IAF? Surely, you know, once the shock of this is settled, there will be an inquiry to find out how is it that such a VVIP chopper went down in such a fashion.
Yes, that inquiry has already been ordered, and the Indian Air Force will look into the circumstances which led to the crash. It wasn't a very long flight, extremely short duration flight, and it came down. And the severity of the crash, eyewitness account says that there was a loud sound that they heard, and then they saw the chopper go off in fire. As it descended, some eyewitnesses claim that they saw human bodies falling off the chopper. On the ground also, the visuals that came in showed that it was completely burned down. So what really happened? What were the circumstances? Was it a weather condition? Was it a technical snag? Worst fears was the sabotage. All of that will have to be inquired into. In the interim, like Shreya was pointing out, the indicators are not very positive as far as CDS's health and his safety are concerned. We'll know for sure only when Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh takes the members of parliament into confidence. Already there are voices from the opposition. Priyanka Chaturvedi, one of those MPs who have been suspended from the upper house, has tweeted. Sharad Yadav has spoken. The sense of the opposition seems to be that why are you allowing rumour mongering? Why not take the country into confidence and tell us whether it is bad news, whether it is good news, whatever it is, take us into confidence. But I think going beyond what Shreya has already told us about the next of kin being informed first. And
all right, Arunima, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you because we've just got confirmation from the Indian Air Force. They've just tweeted this out, and I'm afraid it's the news that we were all hoping against. But unfortunately, it's come to pass. The Air Force has confirmed that Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat has passed away in this chopper crash. CDS Rawat's death has been confirmed. The Indian Air Force has just put that tweet from its official handle just moments ago. They have confirmed that, unfortunately, Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat is one of the 13 people who has died in this chopper crash just off Coonoor. He was due for a lecture at the Staff Defence College in Wellington. Now we have confirmation officially from the Indian Air Force confirming that, unfortunately, and this is our worst fears coming true, that General Bipin Rawat, India's very first Chief of Defence Staff, is now confirmed dead in this chopper crash of this Mi-17 V5. Let me go across to Shreya Dondial. So that tweet now officially confirming our worst fears. Our worst fears have come true, Shreya, that the CDS is no more. He too has succumbed in this chopper crash in Coonoor.
Yes, that is an official confirmation now coming by way of the Indian Air Force. Why the Indian Air Force? Because it was, after all, an Indian Air Force helicopter, the Mi-17, that crashed. It was carrying 14 people on board. Not just is the confirmation of the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat's death, now being confirmed. Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, who was on board, her death is being confirmed as well by the Indian Air Force, 11 others as well. And to answer the question you had started the show with, who's that one person who has miraculously managed to survive this crash? That's Group Captain Varun Singh. He's a Shaurya Chakra awardee. He was directing the CDS all the way to the Staff College. He's the one who has sustained injuries and is currently under treatment at the military hospital in Wellington. So he is the one person who it seems has managed to survive the crash. Otherwise,
I just want to go through these tweets. I'm sorry I'm interrupting. I want to go through the tweet that's been put out just minutes ago by the Indian Air Force. This is the official handle of the Indian Air Force. It says, and I quote, "With deep regret, it has now been ascertained that General Bipin Rawat, Mrs. Madhulika Rawat and 11 other persons on board have died in the unfortunate accident." It goes on to say, around noon today, an IAF Mi-17 V5 helicopter with a crew of 4 members carrying the CDS and 9 other passengers met with a tragic accident. If we just close off this window, this is the tweet where the IAF has now formally confirmed, and I repeat that tweet, "With deep regret, it has now been ascertained that General Bipin Rawat, Mrs. Madhulika Rawat and 11 other persons on board have died in the unfortunate accident." What is now the formal protocol? All right, Anand Narasimhan's now joining us. Anand, share more details with our viewers of this thread that's been put out by the IAF.
Well, Zakab, it's just that the Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh has also confirmed. He's also tweeted, just taking you through this. First up, deeply anguished by the sudden demise of Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat, his wife and 11 other armed forces personnel in an extremely unfortunate helicopter accident today in Tamil Nadu. His untimely death is an irreparable loss to our armed forces and the country. So this is what Rajnath Singh has tweeted. And he's also just now, he's also added another line where he says, General Rawat had served the country with exceptional courage and diligence. As the first Chief of Defence Staff, he had prepared plans for jointness of our armed forces. My heart goes out to the families of those who lost their loved ones in this accident, praying for the speedy recovery of Group Captain Varun Singh, who's currently under treatment at the military hospital in Wellington. So this is the confirmation from the Raksha Mantri of what the Indian Air Force just shortly put out. I'm just quickly showing that to our viewers. They said, with deep regret, it has now been ascertained that General Bipin Rawat, Mrs. Madhulika Rawat and 11 other persons on board have died in the unfortunate accident. Group Captain Varun Singh, SC, directing staff at the DSSC with injuries, is currently under treatment at the military hospital in Wellington. So this is the update that's come through. So there is now official confirmation both from the government and also from the forces.
All right. Do we know what is the protocol from here on? I presume that the body will be brought back to Delhi. His 2 daughters, I'm given to understand, are in Delhi. And I suspect after, some of the public and some of his other colleagues in the forces pay their respects, I suspect the body might be taken to Uttarakhand, to his native village.
Well, it looks like that because the protocols have already started being lined up because the next of kin have to be informed. First up, the confirmation has to happen of each of the individual bodies with the DNA testing which has to be done. Then, of course, the next of kin will be informed, and then they will be, the advice will be taken as to what needs to be done, how it should be done. And it looks like the mortal remains will be brought back to the national capital because General Rawat's daughters are here in Delhi. And from there, based on what was his last wish, perhaps the next steps will be taken. Perhaps that's the reason why, Zaka, we have Pushkar Singh Dhami actually moving to Pauri Garhwal, which is the native place of General Rawat. So the Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Dhami going towards Pauri Garhwal is an indication, that the last rites would be held there.
All right, Anand, thanks very much. As we stay on those pictures, confirmation first from the Indian Air Force and now from the Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh. Let me also go back to both Shreya and Arunima. Shreya, just to get a sense of what the protocol now is, like I was discussing with Anand, the body will be brought back to Delhi, and I suspect after which, if it was so his last wish, it might even be taken to his native village for final resting.
Yes, we are just waiting for details of that to come out. But the very fact that the Air Force Chief, anytime now, in another half an hour or so, will be reaching the crash site. The fact is that it is the Air Force Chief who will be accompanying the mortal remains of General Rawat, of Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, and the rest back to Delhi, because the funeral that will be held will be with full state honours. That itself requires a certain degree of protocol, which is in place. The Prime Minister and the President will be in attendance. The 2 daughters are here in Delhi, barely 5 minutes drive from where I am standing, Zaka. They have been consulted. They are young girls, but they've lost both their parents, their mother and their father, and your heart really goes out to them. So they have been consulted. Now, depending on what they have told the Raksha Mantri and the Army Chief, both have gone to meet them earlier today, will the funeral arrangements be made? But I suspect, of what I'm hearing from South Block, that the last rites will be conducted here in the national capital, and General Rawat will be cremated with full state honours.
All right,
That's what we are
Arunima,
picking up right now.
take this forward in terms of taking this conversation forward. What do we know in terms of the official protocol? We haven't heard from the Prime Minister yet, or from the Home Minister. Yes, we've got confirmation from the IAF and from the Raksha Mantri. What's the protocol from here on?
I think Zaka, because he was the first CDS, we're all waiting to hear from Government of India as to what really will be the protocol. Will there be a national mourning that will be announced? The flag could fly at half-mast as well. In the CCS, I think all of those, after paying the last respect, CCS, where the Prime Minister, the Raksha Mantri, the Griha Mantri, the External Affairs and the Finance Ministers as well. So the top, ministers of Government of India, I think they will begin by paying their last respect. And the fact that the Indian Air Force and the Raksha Mantri have made it official minutes before the CCS begins gives us some idea about what really could be before the CCS. So there is a possibility that a mourning could be declared as well. But like Shreya said, the final goodbye will be official with full state honours, with full state protocols.
Okay, Shreya has more updates. Shreya.
Yeah, just very quickly, hearing from some family members, and what we are picking up from them is that they have been asked to come to Delhi. So the chances of the last rites being conducted in Pauri Gharwal is a little remote. The last rites will probably be held here in Delhi with full state honours, as Arunima is pointing out.
All right, I want to thank both Shreya and Arunima. Try and get more information. Like I said, within the next 15 minutes or so, we have the CCS that will be convened by the Prime Minister at 7 LKM, his residence. Let me go across to Lieutenant General retired B.S. Jaswal, former Army Commander of the Northern Command. Retired Major General S.B. Astana, Global Strategic and Defence Analyst, is also joining us. He's former DG Infantry. And Vikramjit Singh is a senior defence journalist. Let me start with you, General Jaswal. Tragic, absolutely tragic news coming in through the afternoon, and now we have confirmation. Our worst fears have come true. Your thoughts? I'm sure your paths between you and General Rawat in your long and distinguished service years would have crossed at some point for sure.
At the very outset, Zaka, I salute General and Mrs. Rawat and other colleagues who have sacrificed their lives in the line of duty. They were in the line of duty. I would also mention about a very, very dear friend of mine, Brigadier Lidder, whom I have seen as a kid. His father was posted with me. He too is no more. It's indeed very, very sad. It is sad for the country also, because General Rawat had emerged as a pivot to ensure the modernization of the Indian Armed Forces, and he did pursue all the prospective plans which they had and what Indian Armed Forces require. He was personally pursuing them, and I think a lot has been done for the Indian Armed Forces, courtesy General Rawat, who was a soldier to the hilt. I have a lump in my throat when I think about him and the rest of the people who have died in this tragic crash. It is a sad page today for the entire country, not only for the Indian Armed Forces.
All right, let me also go across to Major General S.B. Astana. Right now the entire country is in shock. It's this utter disbelief at what has happened, the sequence of events. But once the dust settles, Major General Astana, questions will be asked as to how did this happen. This is one of the sturdiest VVIP choppers that we have in our fleet. What led to this? Was it the weather? Was it mechanical failure? Was it pilot error? I know there's a code of inquiry that will eventually ascertain the cause, but ultimately, the shock and awe has to give way to some hard questions.
Before I answer your question, I too would like to salute all my friends who have fallen in line of duty, number one. As far as General Rawat is concerned, I'm deeply shocked because I'm not only his course mate, we are from the same company, commissioned on the same date, and he was the only course mate of mine who attended my marriage and my children's marriage and vice versa. So we have a very, throughout I think we have been together. It's a very sad moment for me as well as for my family because families also were quite close to each other. So that's one part of it. But notwithstanding that, our best wishes for the wing commander, for the group captain who is recovering.
Yeah.
And we hope that he recovers and recovers well. And we have the same passion for others who are no more and fallen in line of duty. Now, as far as the reasons are concerned, two things are sure, that yes, the accident has happened, and therefore obviously something has gone wrong, and that's why it is an accident. And secondly, it's too serious a thing to speculate because so many things can go wrong. And when we say so many incidents have taken place earlier as well, this is certainly one of the best helicopters which we have in our fleet.
Yeah.
It is the procedures for the VVIP choppers and VVIP taking off are also very well taped up. So there is a very rare element of slip up on that score. But I have also been head of training in staff college in DSSC staff college in Wellington. Mm-hmm. I can tell you one thing, that the weather changes there very fast.
Yeah.
And that's an area when you gain altitude from Coonoor and when you are almost about to reach Wellington, that is somewhere around Coonoor, where this accident has taken place, the clouds can actually cover you in a manner that one doesn't know as to what is ahead. So sometimes things can be wrong in that manner. As of today, we can't say whether it was weather, whether it was a technical failure, or there was some other angle to it. I'm very sure the court of inquiry will work it out, and we will be able to know.
Okay.
But
I want to go across to Vikramjit Singh because, we are in fairly uncharted territory. General Rawat was the first CDS who was appointed as the head of the Tri-Services Command. What happens now? I mean, do we have a protocol for if we will choose another Chief of Defence Staff? Who may that person be? What is the road ahead as far as this post is concerned?
Well, I think it is not going to be an easy choice for the government because seniority matters very much at the apex level of the three services. So whether whether they go in for deep selection or they go in for the senior most serving chief to be elevated to the CDS, that is for the government to decide in its wisdom. But I think we need to examine this crash very carefully. There have been two earlier crashes in which very senior people died. This was in 1953 in Poonch, where Lieutenant General Daulat Singh, Lieutenant Bikram Singh, and an Air Vice Marshal died in that crash. In 1993, Lieutenant General Jamil Mahmood, the Eastern Army commander, died in a crash in Bhutan. Now, if this is a technical fault, or it is a mechanical fault, or it is a fault of maintenance, or if it is weather, I think heads need to roll for this. Because if it was weather, which I don't think it was, if it was weather, then why was the helicopter given clearance to take off? And if it was maintenance or a technical fault, I think it needs to be people need to be taken to task. But at the same time, we cannot rule out any other sinister angle because we know our enemies are equipped with cyber warfare capabilities. They have laser weapons. They have electronic warfare capabilities. So we need to be because the reports which are coming in are suggesting the helicopter caught fire in midair. Now that is very important. Why did it catch fire in midair? It's not every time that because of a technical malfunction, the helicopter catches fire in midair. Why is it so? So I think
if I may, Vikram, from whatever we know from the eyewitnesses, and obviously they're not experts in this, but whatever we've heard from eyewitnesses, this chopper was suddenly flying at low altitude, it hit a tree, then it went up in flames, and then it fell like a dead ball. All right, we have General Rawat's brother-in-law on the phone line, Yashwardhan Singh. Sir, our condolences from CNN News 18, from the entire country. Your thoughts right now on the passing away of General Rawat. Mr. Yashwardhan Singh, if you can hear me, sir.
हाँ जी जी
जी बताइए, अभी हमें कंफर्मेशन मिला है कि जनरल रावत का निधन हो गया है.
हाँ हाँ
क्या ऑफिशियली आपको परिवारजनों को ये जानकारी दी गई है सरकार की तरफ से?
ये सरकार की तरफ से तो मालूम पड़ा, शाम को मालूम पड़ा है
जी.
और हम एक्चुअली आए हुए हैं भोपाल, अपनी बेटी का कंपटीशन है, हमारा शूटिंग कंपटीशन था बेटी का
जी.
तो हमको अभी यही मालूम पड़ा, तो हम अपनी बेटी को छोड़ करके फ्लाइट से हम जा रहे हैं दिल्ली, हम और हमारी पत्नी.
और कुछ जानकारी दी गई है आपको कि लास्ट राइट्स कहाँ होंगे, बॉडी कब लेके आएंगे दिल्ली, और कुछ जानकारी है?
नहीं, हमको अभी एक्चुअली बात ही नहीं हो पा रही है. काफी जो फोन कॉल्स भी आ गए तो उसमें हम लोग डिस्टर्ब हो गए, कुछ हम लोग पैकिंग भी कर रहे हैं
जी.
और निकलना भी था, और मतलब सेना काफी सहयोग कर रही है हम लोगों को.
रावत साहब के बेटियों के साथ कुछ संपर्क हुई है आपकी अभी तक?
हाँ, उनसे संपर्क करीब 1.5 घंटे पहले हुआ था
जी.
बड़ी बेटी बॉम्बे से चल चुकी हैं या चलने वाली हैं
जी.
उस समय चलने वाली थी, और छोटी बेटी तो साथ रहती है उनके.
ओके. और कुछ जानकारी है परिवारजनों की करीब से कि लास्ट राइट्स जो होगा दिल्ली में होगा, या उनका शरीर उत्तराखंड लेके जाएंगे, उनके जो एंसेस्ट्रल विलेज है?
बिल्कुल भी बात नहीं हो पा रही है. अभी हम उनको कॉल करते हैं तो वहां से भी सारी न्यूज मिल पाएगी हमको.
जी. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया यशवर्धन सिंह हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए, and really heartfelt condolences to Mr. Singh and to the rest of the family who are mourning this loss of General Rawat. I just want to play out an interview chunk. This was the last interview that General Bipin Rawat gave to any television network. He gave it to CNN News 18. This was in May of this year. He spoke exclusively to CNN News 18's Maria Shakil. We just want to play out a small chunk of that interview.
India has proved that it will not be pushed on its northern borders. Whatever we have been able to achieve in standing firm in preventing change in status quo, we have gathered world support on it. Will you say China in a way hurt itself by attempting these adventures at its southern borders?
Well, the armed forces have been given a task by the government. And our task is to ensure the sanctity of our borders. And in doing so, we have to ensure that no part of our territory is lost without a fight. So what I have said, or what the service chiefs have been saying, is that we have to remain ever prepared. Any misadventure by any of our adversaries will be dealt with firmly. We stand firmly on ground and will ensure that the tasks entrusted to us are carried out in a coordinated manner, utilizing the resources of our services, or the 3 services, and any other support that we may need from the government. Now, whether China has attempted on a misadventure or not, only time will tell. As of now, we are standing fast on the ground, and we are not likely to relent under pressure.
What is the status of boundary negotiations with China, General Rawat, and how soon shall we expect a settlement to what really happened last year?
Boundary settlement are complex issues. We all understand the problems that we face on our borders, on our northern borders with China, and in Jammu and Kashmir with our western neighbor Pakistan. Now, these cannot be resolved overnight. Therefore, to say how soon is very difficult to predict. All that we would say that all effort is being made to come to a viable resolution of the border on mutual acceptable terms. No country would like to lose advantage, or I would say tactical or strategic advantage, when we settle our borders. So border settlement will take place based on how the government wants to go ahead with this. You also have to look at how the adversaries look at the boundary settlement. But I think some progress is being made, and maybe the kind of signals that are now coming in, boundary settlement may become a priority issue for both our nations, that is for China and for India. How far it will move, how fast it will move, only time will tell. It is too difficult to predict the time frame in which the boundary settlement will happen. But we are eager that the boundary settlement must take place, but on mutually acceptable terms. As I said, strategically, we cannot afford to lose ground, and we must maintain our strategic autonomy in this regard.